Hey guys, so you are looking to kill Lich Dragon Fortissax, but the problem is you're melee, and you know what? You just keep dying and dying to all these area effect lightning strikes and things that he has to do. So, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to solve this problem? Well, the problem is he's got a weakness, but so do you. And so, what we need to do is we need to exploit his weaknesses and cover up yours. So, at the end of the day, what you're used to doing as a melee is just kind of whacking on dragons, hitting their feet until you break their stance, and then going in and getting critical hits and whatnot. And that works great for most dragons. But for this guy, it's a little bit different because he's got this lightning shield all around him. He's all these AoE lightning attacks, and so the problem is it just doesn't work. And so you can try to do that. I mean, you can certainly run up to him and start whacking on his legs. But the problem is you're going to take a lot of damage, and it just literally becomes this dodge rolling, potion drinking, kind of extravaganza, and that's not going to be the easiest way to kill this guy. Trust me, there's a much easier way to do it. So what we're really going to do is not actually melee him, but instead we're just going to alter our configuration a bit. And the easiest way to do this is to understand what his problem is. And so Fortissax's problem is that this spell, this lightning strike spell that he uses, it whiffs all the time. You can see that basically, using the spell yourself, even on this large, mob, you just can't hit anything. But you know how you can hit it is by actually just running right up and standing right on top of the guy. Well, Fortissax has the same problem. From range, he's not going to be able to hit you. And so the easiest way for him to win the battle is for you to be whacking away right on his legs like you normally do for every other dragon. And that's just not a good plan here, right? So because Fortissax, even though he's an ancient dragon, been doing this for thousands of years, he at range, when he throws these spears down, it's really easy to just avoid these. You can see him coming. You just got to kind of stand in the right place, and you're going to be safe, and there's not going to be any issues whatsoever. So that requires you, though, in order to think more like a mage. So a mage, whenever they're fighting dragons, they know that these dragons do this weird thing where they kind of stalk you at this range, and so what you need to do is think more like a ranged character, and then just kind of stay at that medium to long range and have them just kind of present their head to you where they take double damage, and then you're going to be able to kill them much easier without taking damage. Because Fortissax does this exact same thing, right? If you keep him at that right range, he'll just sit there and stalk you, present his head, and then you can just go ahead and nuke him with whatever ranged attacks you have, and it'll still be a really easy fight. So, we're trying to win by fighting smarter, not by working harder. So if you don't want to change that much, and you basically have a dexterity or a strength build, the easiest thing is to use the pulley bow. It's really easy to get. I'm not going to give you guys guides on where to find these things. There's plenty of guides out there in the wiki. But at the end of the day, you're going to use the setup. So if you have all the talismans, or at least a lot of them, just optimize for a dexterity or a strength, whatever your build is, and use fire arrows. That's the real important thing. So you can either fletch your own fire arrows, or you can go to, there's a vendor in Kaled that makes the fire arrows, the one by the swamp, I think. But really what we're targeting here is a certain range of damage, right? So if you can get your attack power with the bow, like, you might have to upgrade it to like a +7 or a +8 or whatever. But if you can be hitting in that 6 to 800 range, then that's what we're going for. Again, we're not trying to maximize our damage. I mean, if you can get up to hitting for 1,000, that's great, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do chip damage because we're going to be using a summon to tank for us for a while. So if you're hitting this guy here, their target drone, this is the troll that's out by the Third Church America. He's our target dummy here. If you can hit this guy for between 6 and 800, then you're doing a great job, right? So we're going to use the pulley bow. We're going to use Mighty Shot. That's the default skill that comes on the pulley bow, and it's really a great combination. And again, it's a strength and dexterity bow, so it doesn't matter whether you got a strength or a dex build. This is a great bow for you. As far as like what we would use for like your elixir or whatever, if you need to get higher dex or strength, then you can use that in your elixir. You can use a fire damage, the fire damage tier. Any of these things to get to what you want. You can also use Flame Grant Me Strength. All those things that buff normal fire attacks, whether it's a spell or whatever your bow. If you're using these fire arrows, it's going to buff it either way. So if you can be hitting, again in that 700-ish range, and killing this guy in 4 to 5 shots, that's exactly what we're looking to do, because it'll pretty much work out the same way when you're shooting the Lich Dragon Fortissax. So anyways, that's kind of the first option, the easiest one. The second one is if you want to change it up a bit and just do something different, you can actually go ahead and use sorceries if you've got them. Some of these things you're going to have just, by getting to the point where you're at this point in Fia's quest, you're going to have a lot of these spells and things too. So you can actually optimize like a mage would, put on intelligence things, put on this charge talisman here. This is the talisman that comes from, I think it's one of those Everjails that's up in the if I remember correctly, it's up once you get up to on the top of the lift up there, the Great Lift of Dectus. But and then you can go ahead, same thing, get an elixir that gives you plus magic damage, plus intelligence if you need it. Just make sure that the spell that we're using here, that's Loretta's Great Bow spell, just make sure that without the elixir, whatever intelligence you're at, you do not dip underneath the intelligence requirement. I believe it's 24. So because you don't want to be at the end of your fight almost ready to win, and then all of a sudden your elixir runs out after 3 minutes, and now you can't use your spell anymore. So we're just using this Loretta's Great Bow. Go ahead and use the Jellyfish Shield if you've got it. Just bump up your damage a little more. And it's the same things before. These are charged spells, both of the ones we're going to use for either the Faith build or the Int build. And that's why we're using that talisman that improves our charged attacks and charged spells. So that's what we're going to use here. Wait till the bow glows up. You'll see those sparklies coming off it, and that means you're fully charged up, and then you're going to be hitting for the same type of damage again. That's 700, 800 range. That's exactly what we're looking for. So that's the intelligence build. For Faith, we're going to use Frenzied Flame, that incantation. Again, it's a charge spell. It's a fire-based spell, so it works with all your fire augmentations. So again, we're going to want a fire elixir, incantation bust, whatever you need to do. Again, we're not trying to get to some giant nuke. We're trying to get to that 700-ish damage range, because that's going to allow you to let the summon tank while you go ahead and just chip away. And then eventually, if and when your summon dies, he's going to turn to you, and then we're going to get that stalking mechanic that he does where he's presenting his head to you, and you're going to hit for double damage no matter which of these configurations you're using, and you'll be able to finish him off really quickly. So again, it's very similar setup. It's just that we've kind of gone with incantations and faith, faith helmet, whatever it is you can find to get to that, that attack power range that's going to give you the 700 type damage. Now, my character that I'm using for this demo here is already a strength faith hybrid, so I'm going to take off some of these things just so I'm not hitting for too hard. So even though I've showed you some of the things you could use to pump up your faith if you're not a faith-based build, because anybody could get to like 35 faith with potions and talismans and all these types of things. So I actually just took some of my stuff off just to show you guys that the damage range is what's important here more than maximizing your damage. So again, we're using this charged frenzied flame spell, really long range. All of these spells and the bows, they all have really long range, and that's what we really care about, because we want to be able to avoid those dragon lightning attacks that Fortissax has. So again, same type of thing, 4 to 5 hits and he's down. So that's how we know that we're in the right range. So the summon that we're going to use is going to be preferred, the Red Mane Knight. If you can't get this one, the Page is actually really good too. So the Red Mane Knight is the best. He's got a shield, he can melee, but really he's got this great magic bow spell that can do a lot of damage. And the reason that we're using a ranged one of these guys is to make sure that he gains aggro when he flies up in the air and does some of his dive attacks. Now, if you can't afford the Red Mane Knight because you don't have enough FP and you don't want to use the Cerulean tier, whatever the FP tier is, I really recommend the Page. If you guys have never used the Page summon as a melee character, it is really good, especially for this fight, because the Page shoots fire arrows. It's really tanky. In fact, for a lot of my fights, I use him actually over some of the legendary summons. He actually, in a couple of situations, actually outperforms the Black Knight Teach. So you see right here, he's really tanky. He's evasive. This is a +9. I recommend a +8 for this guy or a +7 for the Red Mane Knight, but either of them will work. I use the Red Mane Knight for the fight, but the Teach will work this guy will work just fine. The Page. Again, if you're not familiar with the Page, I definitely recommend you go pick this guy up and level him, because he's super, super good, especially if you're going to be the one primarily tanking. By the way, this strategy doesn't just work for Fortissax. It'll work for a bunch of other mobs in the game that you need to kite. I'm pretty sure it'll even work for some of the end game boss fights too. But anyway, here's the Page. Just realize that this is a summon you can use for a lot of these fights, and I definitely recommend you check it out if you don't have it, or you don't have the Red Mane Knight. This is a real easy one to pick up, and it'll do a lot of good work for you later on in the game for a lot of the other fights if you don't have a lot of FP to use. So just going over the configuration you'll be seeing in the actual video that I captured. I actually captured this before the 1.04 update, so the incantations are actually better. So just to show you guys, I was just using more of my melee build. I didn't even really put any effort into buffing my incantations because I was already a hybrid character, and I'd done this fight before on my mage character, and that's kind of how I learned this technique, knowing that sometimes melee is just too hard of a way to fight some of these guys, especially all these AoE type effect boss mobs. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and check out the fight itself. I'm just going to walk you through it. Again, we just want to get into the fight. We're going to do our summon, do a buff if you've got one, and then just get out of dodge. That's basically how this fight's going to start for us. So again, you're going to come into the fight. You're kind of back up against this wall, so I forget this all the time too. So you're going to drink your potion, go ahead and do your summon, and then buff up if you want to. I'm using Holy Vow, but that's not necessary. It's just something I did to give my summon a little more tankiness and me a little more too. If you're going to take any damage, it's going to be right here. There's this tree that's there, and you can easily get stuck on it, and so I'm trying to dive out of this area effect, and sometimes you're going to have to tank a hit. Not a problem though. Just kind of let your summon take the damage, and then just start wailing away. Right? I mean, again, you should be hitting in this range, that 600 to 800 range. And you can see he's taking good damage, right? But what you want to make sure is you're not taking the aggro. So, just make sure don't do too much. If you see he's starting to turn towards you, let your summon get a little more damage in there. Use your potions. Make sure you're always full, and then just go ahead and start wailing away again. So, this is just pretty easy stuff. The things you have to watch out for if he does get aggro on you, just kind of keep backing away. And then there's that great magic shot that the Red Mane Knight does, and it's going to go ahead. And now we're getting down to the second phase. So now that he's almost half health, he starts to use that Death Blight, lightning summon. And this is where you can just kind of wander in and out of this stuff. Make sure you don't get too much Death Blight. Just stay out of range. He will jump up in the air. And so when he does that, you can see I kind of turn around because he can do a dive bomb and come down on top of you. If that happens, don't worry about it. You need to take damage. Just run away. He can end up next to your summon. He can end up next to you, or he can end up on the other side of the map like he did here. Just be aware of that. Same kind of thing. I think I whiffed this one right here because he's just out of range. So kind of getting the range on whether you're using the bow or the spells is really important. So. When he jumps up like this, again, you just kind of watch the lightning, make sure that you're avoiding it. Again, hit your spells, make sure you got enough FP to finish him off. Because he gets to this point right here, and your summon's about to die, if you notice that. This is where you've really got to let it out. Now, I saw him jump up, and that's why I turned around, because I thought maybe he was going to come dive bomb on me, and I wanted to be able to get out of the way if he did. But once the summon goes down, you're at this point, you're in pretty good shape. He might do one of his sweep attacks, go up in the air, just dodge it. It's pretty easy, especially if you're at range. He's almost never going to hit this. So, and this is where you've got the battle right here. Once he's at this position and he's in that stalking mode, just stay right here, run back, hit your spells, boom, run away, and you're going to be able to finish him in. These are doing double damage, so you're going to be able to finish him off real easy. And this is it, I think, if I recall. Yep, that's it. So, again, it just requires a slight alteration, whether you're using the bow, the sorcery or whatever. It's the same thing. So, easy guide. Hopefully, this helps you guys out. Don't need to worry about liking and subscribing. Just thanks for watching, and I hope I helped you. Bye.